The word entrepreneur comes from French. It means to undertake. To me, innovation is the most rewarding and important work in which we can engage. Scholar Jeffrey Timmons called entrepreneurship the knack for sensing opportunity where others see chaos, contradiction, and confusion, a fundamentally human, creative act. Notably, by definition, that which is novel is also unpredictable, all of which is to say that my talk today is perhaps a misnomer. One cannot accurately predict the future of entrepreneurship. It's actually that very uncertainty that makes it especially exciting to think about where we might be going. While that path is uncharted, one aspect is clear to me. The seeds of our future are planted in our past. I won't go all the way back to our hunter-gatherer ancestors, the most entrepreneurial of whom created tools as a means to better navigate their environment, but I'd like to start with a short tour through history before discussing what I see today and what might be possible tomorrow. I'll do this by journeying through a couple of my own experiences that admittedly predate many of the advances we now take for granted. There's a certain thrill in encountering innovations that matter, ones we believe will change the way we live or work. Did you ever come across a new product or service the sheer existence of which just made you happy? I can recall two events in particular that made me feel like that when I was growing up. The first was the opening of the Mill in New York City. My dad was a senior Burlington employee, so we were invited to attend the grand opening of this technological marvel. The Mill at Burlington House was a 10,000 square foot exhibition that demonstrated how raw cotton is spun into yarn and then woven into fabric. As the daughter of a proud textile man, I was already quite familiar with the process and understood that the seeds of its modern iteration were sown by engineering entrepreneur Eli Whitney. In my childhood home, knowing who invented the cotton gin was as basic as being able to name all four Beatles. Instead, what captured my attention that day was a ride through the 8.5-minute exhibit on a moving sidewalk, the very first in New York City. At the time, moving sidewalks were not even remotely a new invention. The concept was patented by Alfred Speer in 1871 as a way to address short-distance transportation needs. A full century later, the world was still not ready for this mode of travel when I, as someone who walked to school each day, thought it was the most amazing technology I had ever encountered. Apparently, others disagreed. Even now, aside from their presence in airports, moving sidewalks have not permeated our environment. A newer solution to the same question, how might we move people within a few miles more quickly and efficiently, was unveiled in 2001 when the brilliant inventor Dean Kamens introduced the Segway. As we all now know, Kamens' vision of revolutionizing urban environments with this specific device was not to be. In this case, the naysayers were at least partially correct, but the future is full of entrepreneurial possibility. Kamens' instincts about the job to be done, provide more effective, accessible short-term transportation, and the aligned product market fit, personal mobility devices, turned out to be absolutely correct. Recently, McKinsey reported that the value of the micromobility market could reach $440 billion by 2030. And Segway? They merged with Chinese company Ninebot and today lead the market in electric scooters, having produced over 10 million units, including those licensed by Bird and Lime. I had another memorable experience with a new innovation in 7th grade math. In Mr. O'Brien's class, we spent more than a little time learning how to calculate a square root using estimation and long division. I loved math, but pretty much hated this laborious process. David Lubarsky, before becoming an anesthesiologist and chief medical officer right here at University of Miami and later CEO of the UC Davis healthcare system, sat behind me in that math class. Back in 1972, using his bar mitzvah money, David purchased the brand new HP 35 calculator. The first time I saw him push a button on that handheld device and instantly come up with the imperfect square root in decimal form, it blew my mind. I was looking at the world's first scientific pocket calculator, and though I didn't know it at the time, the birth of personal computing. When you think about profound entrepreneurial moments you've witnessed, I suspect many of you, like me, would place the following recollection on your list of at least the top 5. A dark stage, a tall, supremely confident man clad in blue jeans and a black turtleneck, and an introduction to 3 enticing new advices that dramatically turned out to be encapsulated in just one revolutionary device, the iPhone. Like any true disruption, this one generated more than its share of skeptical experts who arguably should have had better foresight. The rest of us instinctively knew it was important, not just because Steve Jobs told us so, but because it was obvious that somehow things were now different. The seeds of our future are planted in our past, but we need to nurture and grow them. To that end, I choose to believe that teaching entrepreneurship helps shape a better tomorrow. Whether it's something that helps us reimagine our ways of knowing, like a calculator, modes of moving, like an electric scooter, or means of connecting to everyone and everything, like the iPhone, great ventures have always been built, first and foremost, on identifying a genuine problem and creating a fitting solution. In my entrepreneurship class, we practice this pathway via design thinking methodology. This means we create concepts based on user-centric value propositions. We use the work of Alexander Osterwalder to think about pain relievers and gain creators that directly address the needs and wants of our end users. Guided by Jean Liedtke's growth models, we move through her 4 questions. What is? What if? What wows? And what works? Embracing design thinking means that as we go, we test our hypotheses through a series of iterations in a continuous cycle, moving towards a viable service or product. This requires empathy, receptivity to feedback, and contextual understanding. It's a process that relies on both the critical inquiry and practical applications that are the hallmarks of an Emory education. Over the years, I've been privileged to watch with pride as Emory students with whom I've worked become alumni entrepreneurs who ask what is, wonder what if, figure out what wows, and create ventures that work. Among my favorites, Mike Dubin, who, frustrated by the time, expense, and inconvenience of purchasing razor blades, built an e-commerce subscription service called Dollar Shave Club, not only embracing what was then a pioneering business model, but also introducing it with a wildly viral founder's video that has been often imitated but never duplicated. Brian Rudolph created Banza because he was gluten sensitive and nutrition conscious and believed that others like him wanted to keep pasta in their lives. They did, and Banza is now the fastest growing pasta brand in the country, available in more than 25,000 retail locations. Karen Kelleher, a devoted supporter of independent musicians, had an epiphany. She was presenting data about bands' revenue from vinyl record sales in comparison to the fractional amount received from streaming. She quit her job at Google to build Gold Rush Vinyl, modernizing the manufacturing process in order to be able to more quickly press high-quality records in time for bands to sell them on tour. Josh Luber believed the market for scarce physical goods should operate on transparent economic principles of supply and demand. To the delight of sneakerheads everywhere, he founded first StockX and later Fanatics Collectibles on that basis, becoming one of a very small handful of entrepreneurs ever to have built 2 multi-billion-dollar businesses. Will Hockey. Fascinated by fintech, he spoke with many founders in the emerging space and discovered that they shared a common need to connect to their customers' bank accounts. He pivoted, and instead of addressing just one opportunity, he launched Plaid, a financial platform that enabled him to serve the entire fintech industry, leading his venture to a $13.4 billion valuation. The seeds of our future are planted in our past. So what does that past tell us about the future of entrepreneurship? I see it as a continuum along a technology-driven, ever-accelerating path that nevertheless rests on enduring principles. I know many today who worry that recent advances place the world as we know it in peril. I'm pretty sure that Mr. O'Brien was convinced that once we were in possession of calculators that could take square roots, we would never learn math properly again. Similar conversations occurred when computers entered the classroom and are happening now in discussions about machine learning and AI. To be fair, it does feel like we have once again moved to a new technological frontier. In that chaos lies opportunity. As Goizueta professor Ben Kaczynski explains, aspiring entrepreneurs have never had more power. We have tools that let us build with no-code and low-code platforms, and emerging technologies provide us with the luxury of focusing less on how we will make things happen and more on what we would like to have happen. If Ben is optimistic, so am I. If advances allow us to get places more quickly, access information more easily, or analyze data more effectively, that frees us up to do the really important work, whatever that might become. Thinking about how to create that kind of societal value is a dominant theme among those I teach. In my course last semester, students developed business pitches for better ways to procure and prepare food with lower cost and less waste, utilize recyclable metals to manufacture semi-disposable dishware, provide greater fee transparency for small investors, and to expand access to art through virtual reality. They, along with your kids, and eventually their own kids, are the future of entrepreneurship. I'm filled with hope that is informed by deep experience with the rising generation. They will create collaboratively and will do it best in the right environment, a place like Emory, where intellectual curiosity thrives and context matters, where people of diverse backgrounds engage in a collision of ideas, and where ways of thinking about purpose and impact are nurtured. I believe they will persevere in the face of skepticism and will create according to values that include respect for differing perspectives, conscious stewardship of resources and the planet, and a sense of the responsibilities that accompany any privilege they have or will acquire. I see an entrepreneurial future where we experience déjà vu as once again a charismatic figure, perhaps this time a woman of color, strides on stage. She's clad in a luminescent jacket with black leggings, stitched with temperature-regulating, energy-revitalizing, health-monitoring, wearable smart technology. She might be joining us via hologram. We can't tell. Holding a shimmering device in her hand. What is it? Maybe it emits focused nanoparticle radiation to widespread malignant cells, curing late-stage cancers. Maybe it sprays a foam that neutralizes CO2 emissions, creating instant carbon sinks that allow us to reverse global warming. Maybe it instantly runs billions of scenarios for any global conflict, responding with an indisputable optimal solution that provides the conditions for permanent world peace. Although the details of that moment are unknowable, and in response to those who will always fear change, there's one thing I can say with certainty. The future of entrepreneurship, like its past, will be a fundamentally human creative act. And that is all that really matters. Thank you very much.